Good afternoon, everyone. We are at the top of the hour. It is 1 p.m. and welcome to the Transportation, Airports, and Public Works Committee virtual meeting for the City of Aurora. Our goal is to ensure excellent infrastructure that is well maintained and operated. I am your chair, Stephanie Hancock, along with Councilmember Françoise Bergan and Councilmember Angela Lawson, who will not be joining us today as she is down at the state capitol dealing with business down there. So we're going to soldier on. Thank you for everyone who has attended, who is in attendance at the meeting today. Thank you so much. We'll start off with the approval of the July 18th minutes. If there are no changes, amendments, or deletions, we'll accept them as they are. Councilmember Bergan?
They are good for me.
All right, then we'll move right along. Yay! We have no items under the consent piece, so we're going to go right into general business. Consideration to approve a resolution for the IGA with CDOT for the Communications Infrastructure Upgrade Project. Presenting today, I believe, is Carly Campazano, Traffic Manager, and Michelle Gardner, Assistant City Attorney. Ladies, take it away.
Thank you, Councilmember Hancock. I appreciate it. My name is Carly Campazano, Traffic Manager in the Public Works Department. I actually have the first two items on the agenda. Both items are related to each other because they are both IGAs with CDOT for the same type of grant-funded project. So this presentation will actually cover both of these items. This is the first IGA is related to a communications infrastructure upgrade project, and the second IGA is for a traffic management center project. All right, so just to give a brief overview, these IGAs are related to funding through the Denver Regional Council of Governments, or DRCOG's Regional Transportation Operations and Technology set-aside program. This is a set-aside program that's related to their transportation improvement program project cycle. So every 4 years, there's a call for projects, and DRCOG allocates federal funding to projects that align with basically the metro area's vision and goals. This subset of funding is allocated to traffic operations and technology types of projects. And this might look a little bit familiar because we've brought forward little sections of this previously, like we've brought forward the grant applications a while ago. And then of the 3 projects, we've brought forward one of the IGAs a couple months ago. So some of this might look a little bit familiar. But basically, in the last call for projects, Aurora applied for 3 different projects, and we were fortunate enough to be awarded funding for all 3 of them. So these 2 IGAs are for 2 of those 3 projects. This table gives just a funding summary. So the ones in red are the IGAs that are before you today. So we've broken down the federal requests and then the local match as well. So all in all, we're receiving about $2.8 million in federal funding for all of these projects, and we are contributing a local match of about $766,000 for these projects. So the next couple of slides are just kind of project overviews to give a description of these specific projects. The first one is the communications infrastructure project. So the scope of this includes getting some fiber strands from CDOT and actually doing the construction work to connect to those. So we're going to be connecting basically the signals that are at interchanges because that's where the main fiber already is. So we'll be able to connect 12 signalized intersection locations, which will really help us with communications of our network throughout the city. And it'll let us also connect back to 2 of our city facilities, which are the North Satellite Facility, which is where all of our signal equipment is, and then at the Municipal Center as well. So this project essentially will just help us be able to communicate with signals more easily. It'll help us upload, download data more quickly, and it'll help us bring back bigger amounts of data as well. The scope of the next project, this is the Traffic Management Center project. So with this project, we're going to be converting some space that's already at our North Satellite Facility and making it into more of like an operational traffic management center. So this will include installing workstations for staff to use where they can see the traffic data real time, push out updates, and really monitor the traffic flow throughout the city and work to make changes more in real time and more proactively. So this project includes the actual construction of these elements, as well as all the configuration of some of the more technical hardware and software equipment. So the question before you is if the committee supports moving these two IGAs forward to the next available study session. And I can answer any questions. Oh, you're muted, Councilmember Hancock.
Thank you, Carly, for that presentation. Councilmember Bergan, do you have any questions about this?
Just one, I know I might have missed it, the timing of that traffic management center, because I'm very excited about that.
Yes, thank you. That's a good question. I actually don't know that I included that. So these projects are for construction funding for 2026. So we're starting the design already right now. We've already initiated contracts and engaged CDOT on the design. So we'll be doing the design starting now over probably the next 1 to 2 years, and then hopefully construction will be for 2026 for both of these.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Fantastic. So with that said, do you support moving forward to these two IGAs to study session? And I am a thumbs up as well. So let's move forward with those two. Those are great. Fantastic. Thank you, Carly.
Thank you.
Next, since we've covered two, man, we're like rolling along. This is awesome. That's 4A and 4B. So then that we have the last item is 4C, which is Americans with Disabilities Act and the Public Right of Way update. Karen Shorb and Michelle Gardner up again. Ladies, take it away. I'm not hearing you, Carlin. Sorry, Carlin. I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, I turned my camera on and not my microphone. My apologies.
Nope, no worries. I do it all the time.
So hi, I think everyone here knows me, but for those who don't, I'm Carlin Shorb. I'm the ADA coordinator here at the City of Aurora. I've been in my position just over 6 months. And I'm here to give you all an ADA update with the city. I did want to draw your attention to our consultant, Travis Greiman, with Banesh, who's also here with me, and he'll be available at the end of the presentation to answer any more detailed questions if they relate to, just more technical questions related to public works. So I'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, can everyone see that? Great. So as you all may or may not know, the city's been working on implementing what's called an updated self-evaluation and transition plan. The process started in towards the end of 2021, first part of 2022, when the Public Works Department took on the job of basically self-evaluating the public works infrastructure to ensure accessibility was being met. So I wanted to go ahead and give an update now on the self-evaluation and transition plan. I put together a roadmap. I'll talk first about accessibility, just a general what is it and why it's important. Then I'll go over the ADA requirements and other legal mandates associated with accessibility. And then I'd like to talk about our milestones and the next steps in the self-evaluation and transition plan process. So just in this slide, I wanted to say I shamelessly pinched from my colleague, Mr. Will Flowers from the communications department. He's the digital and web accessibility coordinator here at the city. He has a really great definition of accessibility, which states that when we use the term accessible, we mean that a person with a disability can, with equivalent ease and independence relative to a person without a disability, interact with, benefit from, and participate in city programs, services, and activities. This includes physical and digital spaces. So, you might ask, why is accessibility important? We have some really good stats here that according to the CDC, 1,015,417 adults in Colorado have a disability. There's different governmental agencies that publish numbers of people who are disabled around the country and in the state of Colorado. That would include the census, that would include the Department of Justice. And the numbers usually land between about 23 and 27%. So if you think about it, about a quarter of adults in our community have a disability. And so what the chart you're looking at states or shows are percentages of adults in Colorado with select functional disability types that include mobility, cognition, independent living, hearing, vision, and self-care. So that's a really, really sizable and significant number, and is probably the most significant in determining why having an accessible environment is very important for members of our community. It's also true that accessible services are simply better services overall. Some really great examples are parents pushing strollers using sidewalk curb cuts. We all use elevators and ramps. And this came from Will Flowers, too, was also created and offered by Will Flowers in the communications department. But 85% of Facebook videos are also watched without sound using captions. So even though those may be created to be accessible to folks who have hearing disabilities, we all use the captions when we're watching things like Facebook and Instagram. 33% of Aurora residents speak languages other than English at home, and captions could also potentially benefit them as well. So those are just some examples of why accessibility is important and why it's has to do a lot with providing a service in our community that could be beneficial to all and not just individuals with disabilities as well. So let me see. I don't know why my video is not. Okay, my apologies, but I don't think my PowerPoint is moving. Okay. I'll just share it this way. Can everyone see the next slide that's come up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So the Americans with Disabilities Act is kind of the big law that encompasses, accessibility mandates. That law was passed in 1991, and it does have certain fundamental requirements that it mandates for all state and local governments. There's also other relevant laws that it are mandates for accessibility with state and local governments, which would include the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, which actually mirrors the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act, the recent HB 211110, which talks about digital accessibility and mandates accessibility in the digital space. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 applies to entities receiving federal funds and to entities applying for federal programs. And even the Federal Fair Housing Act applies to has accessibility mandates that would apply to state and local governments like ours who are providing housing programs. So accessibility mandates under various laws affect all areas of the city. They affect our architectural compliance of buildings, parks in the public right of way, events, programs, activities for the public, online billing and payment systems, registration sites, documents, multimedia, agendas, et cetera, and also the availability of auxiliary aids and accommodations, such as interpreters, captions, and other aids to assist people in communicating with the city. So under the ADA, I just wanted to go over these and then I'll talk about the milestones under each requirement. The ADA requires what I kind of have identified as 6 basic legal mandates. The first one is to appoint an ADA coordinator. The second one is to post public notice of non-discrimination citywide. The third one is to set up a grievance procedure for the public to address concerns about discrimination under the ADA. The fourth is to, and I put this in quotes, this comes directly from the Act, reasonably modify rules, policies, and procedures to avoid discriminating against people with disabilities. The fifth requirement is to provide reasonable modifications to allow individuals with disabilities to access structures, programs, services, and activities on equitable footing as their non-disabled counterparts. And then the last requirement is to undertake a self-evaluation to examine how programs, services, and activities are delivered to individuals with disabilities and develop a transition plan to address deficits in equitable services to community members with disabilities. So in talking about recent milestones since 2022, when the city took on the update of the self-evaluation and transition plan, they've appointed an ADA coordinator. So great. You know, I came on board in January, but actually the city currently has 3 identified or potentially, I guess, 4 identified ADA coordinators. I am what's called the Title II ADA coordinator. So I am working on working on infrastructure and this self-evaluation and transition plan and taking grievances and accommodation requests from just members of the public. So my office is the one that's the public facing. In 2022, I believe it's 2022, the city hired our website and digital accessibility coordinator, Will Flowers. And since that time, he has been working on bringing the city's digital spaces into compliance with that House bill, that Colorado House bill, and other laws in the digital space. And then we, for many, many, many years, had what are called Title I ADA coordinators. Those are the folks in human resources who work with employee accommodation requests. So I think the city is really doing a great job and really far ahead when it comes to appointing ADA coordinators, especially for a city our size. Post-public notice of non-discrimination against individuals with disabilities. This is both the Title I and Title II mandate. So I don't know if you all are familiar with whenever your workplace, a lot of times where the copy machines are, where the employee break rooms are, they have these kind of employment notices that are posted throughout areas where employees can find them. Those are Title I non-discrimination notices, in addition to other Department of Labor rules that are required to be published to employees. Title II also mandates something similar. They mandate that the city creates a non-discrimination policy and publicizes it. So what we have done since 2022 is ensure that the non-discrimination language is posted online in an accessible format, digitally accessible format. So all of that, every single page on the website has a link that says accessibility, and then it also has a notice of non-discrimination link, and the non-discrimination notice and the notice of the grievance and the accommodation requests are posted online digitally. We've also created some posters, basically signs that are going to go to all the city facilities and are going to be posted at those facilities. So that just shows you kind of what the notice looks like, and that's what you're going to be seeing at facilities citywide here pretty soon. The next requirement was to set up a grievance procedure for the public and for employees to address concerns about discrimination under the ADA. So right now what we've done since January is create an interim online public grievance and accommodation request form. So if you go to the city's accessibility webpage, we do have a form that's accessible and usable, very easily usable, and all of the information that needs to be published online. For example, it's a requirement that the city publish who the ADA coordinator is. All of that is online on our accessibility page, and we can now take public grievances and accommodation requests via that form. We also have alternative ways that individuals can contact us. We have the phone number up there, we have the email address up there and everything. We do need your help. If you have any constituents who have accommodation requests, who have any questions, who are, you're hearing about issues because that are happening because of their disabilities, please reroute them to that form online, as we will be opening a case to help them.
Just 1 second before you go on, because I
Sure.
thought about this. Is this concerning ADA accessibility for citywide, or is it strictly for city facilities, buildings, et cetera, or is it for any ADA compliance issue?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the ADA is very, very, very broad. It's all services, programs, and activities. And so most of the complaints, just to give you an example, that we've received so far had to do with the public right-of-way. And that's not unique. I think the Public Works Department folks are pretty used to that. But it's not just the built environment. It's not just buildings and facilities. It could have something to do with, say, for example, a recreation program where someone had tried to enroll a child who was disabled and for some reason was denied access. It could be access to the golf court courses, or requesting an accommodation for a golf cart because of a disability. It could be anything. It could be a special event that the city is presenting to the public. So it's in all areas.
Okay.
Can I ask
So
a
it's-
question? Sorry.
Go ahead. I think we're probably on the same path, but go ahead, Françoise.
Well,
Go ahead, Councilmember
it's
Bergan.
starting to get very complicated, I guess. Because you just mentioned if you don't offer a recreation program to somebody that has a particular disability and they're denied, I mean, that's going to be really, really difficult to accommodate, I would think. I know you said reasonable accommodations earlier, but obviously, I don't want to, I'm not trying to be rude, but if someone is in a wheelchair, obviously they can't do Pilates. So is that, how do you, I guess is the reasonable part of it, right? Like how you accommodate?
Sure. So much like the Title I process that has to do with employee accommodation requests, the ADA, even in Title II, is very process oriented. And so this requirement 3 that I was just talking about, where it says to set up a grievance procedure and also a procedure for requesting a modification, there's a really big focus on an interactive process with members of the public. And so it's really, really important that we create a way for individuals to be able to request modifications or to, submit grievances and then go through a case by case. You're right. It has to be, it's all very individualized. It's all very case by case. You basically go through kind of an interactive process with the resident to come to a resolution together on what would be a reasonable modification. There are exceptions to modification requests if it was unduly financially or administratively burdensome. Then the city would not be required to provide a modification. And so, I think the ADA is very fair in that way. There's a really, really big focus on process, that as long as we're providing the process for people to be able to request these things and then go through kind of an analysis. I can actually show you. I'll go to the next. So this is what we've done, for example. So this is what I was talking about, process focused. We've created a process for individuals to submit accommodation requests, and we've created a process for individuals to submit any formal grievances that they would have. And so you're right, you could come to the conclusion that if there's a Pilates class being offered by the city, that it might also not be, you're not required to it's called fundamentally alter the nature of the program, if that makes sense, Françoise.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's very fair. You don't have to fundamentally alter the nature of a program. The example that's always used in trainings that I've done is a modification asking to move a beach volleyball game from sand to an indoor court because someone's in a wheelchair, that fundamentally alters the nature of the game, right? And so you wouldn't be required to fundamentally alter the nature of the game. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With the increasing number of requests for children with autism and other special needs of that type, what are we doing to make accommodations for that?
So this is relatively new. I don't know if you know this, but the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department actually has an adaptive recreation program. And so one of the things that I've been focusing on is this self-evaluation and transition plan that I'll get to in a moment. But the adaptive recreations folks, they provide adaptive services for children or other individuals, adults with disabilities upon request. But they have something called inclusion services. And so a resident can contact Parks, Recreation, and Open Space, for example, and ask for their child to be integrated into a regular program as well. And then the folks over at with inclusion services, they're highly trained. They're all adaptive recreation specialists. They would work with the swimming program or the golf program or the summer camp, and they would be the ones helping to create that special plan for the child to be integrated into that setting. if that makes sense. Yeah. So I don't have a very specific answer about autism, but that would be how they would go about having their child. And granted, you also just, I've just from experience, you can contact, for example, for summer camps. They're all really highly trained, the folks in recreation, to identify these types of needs. If the parents or guardians contact them, they'll work on a plan together with the family as well.
Thank you.
So ADA compliance. So requirement 4 is to reasonably modify rules, policies, and procedures. So I think we went over that a bit, but so we've basically created that grievance process. We've created that modification request process. The communications department has done some really incredible things in the digital space. They've created a web accessibility transition plan. They've updated their communications policies and their branding, all of it to be digitally compliant. And things, folks like the city engineer have been working on updates with the roadway manual as well. And we are just continually working on other policy review updates and creation. So some examples of updates or creation of certain policies that would be needed would be around service animals, special event accommodations, effective communication, ASL language access, that sort of thing. Again, here's the process that we talked about. I just wanted to share, just because I'm a big fan of what the communications department has been doing for the last 2 years in the digital accessibility space. But here's an example of a policy that has been created through the communications department around accommodation statements. So this is just helps employees know, like when they're publishing an event and the type of media that they're using, how they would incorporate accommodation language into their marketing and advertising materials. So providing reasonable accommodations, we did go over that a bit. So again, we've got the accommodation request form created. That is an interim accommodation request form. I'm working really hard to try to integrate to basically fit more the city's structure and process around forms and systems they already use to get accommodation requests coming in. We've been doing a number of staff trainings. They're underway, and we'll be working on digital trainings that will be available as part of the onboarding process and, throughout an employee's tenure here at the city, so that they're knowledgeable and aware of what the ADA says and what their obligations are under the ADA. And again, the self-evaluation and transition plan are underway. So I did want to spend some time talking about the self-evaluation and transition plan, which is something that we have decided to phase. So we've decided to phase the self-evaluation and transition plan. It's basically a self-evaluation. You can think of it as, I guess, an internal audit on looking at basically all of our programs, services, our buildings, our facilities, everything, and saying, okay, where might there be some deficits, and then identifying those and then creating a plan to address the deficits. As I'd mentioned before, the ADA is super, super process focused. And so the really big thing is having a plan. I know there's a lot of fear around, okay, well, how much are things going to cost, or what's going to happen? What if things are identified, that sort of thing. I'd say that it's a good thing that the ADA is very process oriented, because as long as we have a plan and we are addressing the plan, it could be a 50-year plan, it could be a 100-year plan, if that makes sense, especially for things like infrastructure. I don't think there's as much of a focus on how quickly things have to be done. There's a focus on having a plan and also working the plan and showing that, there's a good faith effort in working towards the plan. So that's, I think, the really nice thing about the ADA. So in addressing the phases starting in 2022 and now in 2023 through 2025, the focus of phase 1 is going to be the public right-of-way. And if you guys have any specific questions, like I mentioned, Travis Greiman from Benesh is here and also can help answer any specific questions you all would have under the public right-of-way. Phase 2, which we're currently putting an RFP together for, is going to focus on those buildings, parking lots, facilities, and other structures. And that's going to be starting next year. Phase 3 is going to be on parks, recreation, and open space, and that'll likely start next year as well. So there'll be 2 different phases, but they'll Both start in 2025, although the phase 3 will probably start later in 2025. And then the final phase will be around emergency services and emergency preparedness, which will be the final phase of the self-evaluation and transition plan. And I'm really sorry, I'm not seeing this. It's not moving for me on my computer. So phase 1, that's where the majority of the work that has been done so far. We're well on our way to completing our self-evaluation for the public right-of-way. Banesh has done a large number of surveying of public right-of-way, and it has come back with data for that. And we are now moving on to surveying internal stakeholders at the city, and also engaging the public, which is also a requirement of the self-evaluation and transition plan. And so we have developed, which are in your packet, we've developed surveys, both internal and external surveys. The internal surveys we hope to get out citywide to staff by September 1st. And then the external surveys, we would like to start getting out to the public through various media by October and through October and November. We also intend to have some open houses to engage the public. And we'll do some targeted outreach to disability groups and organizations. And we'd love to be able to do some targeted outreach to your city council constituents as well. So that's the next phase, the next process in phase 1. We intend to actually go through this same process during every phase of the transition, self-evaluation and transition plan as well. So basically right now where we're at is that we need your help to get the surveys out to the public. That would be our request. And we would also, have you reroute any 88 requests or complaints to our office, the 88 office. Our email is listed here. And we also have that form that individuals can fill out. Yeah, and then are there any questions or further questions that you may have?
I have
Councilmember Bergan.
Thank you, Councilmember Hancock. Just on the different phases, you have emergency services as phase 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that I'm not sure. It sounds a little bit concerning. Like, is that the 911 service that would be delayed until phase 4? Is it timing wise, the phase?
It's timing wise, but also the reason, and I guess, yeah, you're right. There wasn't buildings and facilities and all those physical structures tend to be the ones that are focused on the most. But I think my rationale or our rationale in putting emergency services last is that the city is already going through they're undertaking a project now to review emergency services. And a lot of any potential issues could be taken care of through that process. And, it would be, in my opinion, better to wait until they're done with that process to review so as not to overlap in services, if that makes sense.
I guess so. I'm just, again, with 911 calls, I mean, obviously life and death. So I just, maybe we're already making enough progress. Maybe Laura Perry knows the answer to that, but it seems like that would be more of a priority.
Well, I would think that since they're already undergoing a process right now, to your point, Carlin, that maybe this will solve itself in terms of what they're discovering in the process that they're working on right now. Would that be true, Laura, in your estimation?
Well, I think I'm hearing two things. So one, we have continuation of operations plans, so COOP plans that each department has that specifies who's responsible in the case of emergency, roles and responsibilities. So all of that work, departments have been working over the last several months on updating those plans. So that's what Carlin's referencing is what's ongoing with that. And then there's the facility component in which the services like 911 resides. So the facility itself, that will be evaluated as part of the facilities phase of the transition plan. On the operational side for 911 Carlin, I don't know if that is in the phase 4, or is that something that would fit into the other phases on the
No.
operations side?
For the operations side, the goal, that would be what would be reviewed under phase 4. And it certainly, if that's something that we need to discuss and move up in the priorities, we certainly can have that discussion. I guess my thinking was also maybe more of a risk thing when people think of accessibility and when they identify accessibility challenges. Generally, that has to do with the public. The majority of identification of accessibility concerns come in related to the public right-of-way and to not being able to get into buildings and facilities. That was why the first 2 phases, but it's certainly open for discussion. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't move the phases, change the timing on those and everything.
Yeah, and if I might, I remember, was it a year ago, maybe, that there was a proposal for our paramedics to utilize some training for them to be able to identify people with autism, for example, in an emergency situation. So like if they got called to a house for a health issue, but the person happened to be autistic, there was a gap in how to communicate with that person. So that's what I'm kind of talking about.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, and training is it's a very large part of this, is having robust training programs within the city so that everyone is aware of the ADA and has good solutions to be able to work with individuals with disabilities. So yeah, absolutely.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions, Councilmember Bergan?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you, Carlin. I said Karen before, and I'm sorry about that. Carlin, thank you for that presentation and appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Is there an ask at the end of this, or was this just for information only?
Well, we had thought that it might be a good idea, and that's entirely up to you all, about presenting at study session. But it is just an update, so it's entirely, yeah, so I guess that would be the ask, whether to move forward to study session or an update as well.
Comments, Councilmember Bergan?
I think that would be good if the schedule allows.
Okay, we'll look at a place on the calendar and see if we can plug that in. Okay. Because it is vital, sir. I mean, it's an important part of what we do for our constituents in the city, and we appreciate your hard work. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. Much appreciated.
Great, great, great. So, wow, we are flying through today. We're getting to miscellaneous matters for consideration. Laura, do we have any?
There are no items from staff today.
Oh, wow. And Councilmember Bergan, anything from on your side? I don't have anything. Anything
I
from
don't
you?
have anything. No.
Okay. And so anticipated topics for the next meeting from anything from staff
Yes,
that you're cooking?
We have a healthy meeting for September. So we are bringing forward our 2024 to 2025 snow and ice control plan. The plan has been updated. Every year we update it, but there have been further updates on the plan that we want to bring forward to you. We are bringing forward a shared mobility program update, a conversation on microtrenching, and next steps on that front on for our fiber procedures, an IGA with APS for Turn Island construction at Vista Peak High School, an IGA with Arapahoe County for Piccadilly and Plains traffic signal there, and one more IGA, the County Line IGA with Arapahoe and Elbert counties. So quite a few IGAs, and definitely 3 very substantive topics to talk through with this committee.
I'm very excited to hear about the micro-trenching piece, as I is, anticipating that coming forward. So I'm glad to see that it will be on September's agenda so that we can talk in depth about that. So very excited about that. So we are confirming that. I looked at my calendar and it looks like we're having our next meeting on the 15th of September. Is that right?
That is correct.
Wowzers. we're just knocking them out of the park here. I'm very excited to see what's coming up in transportation and public works. Was there anything else? Councilmember Bergan, did you?
Yeah, just real quick question for Public Works on the snow plan. Last year when we rolled out the resolution that I had for metro districts to be, or HOAs to be able to do their own plowing, and I think we only had 2 that signed up. Can we just put a reminder out to the HOAs and metro districts that, again, you're able to sign up and just have to sign an agreement with us?
Yes, Councilmember Bergen, I can do that. There is still only 2. I did send out 1 additional application. I have not heard back from that particular HOA yet. So, but I can do that.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. Fantastic. We're on it. And thank you everyone for participating in the call today. Our next scheduled meeting is in September on the 15th. And
Chair
with that,
Hancock, if I can
It's not the 15th.
Sorry, Thursday, September 19th.
19th.
Same
Man,
week.
I was so
same week.
close. Same week. 19th.
From
Oh,
1
I'm
to
looking at the
2:30.
wrong calendar. See, I'm okay. Never mind. See, one of these times I'm going to actually get the date right. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, September 19th. Yes,
September
is the date.
19th.
Yes.
That's the date. Okay. I always get a reminder anyway, so it's fine. Thank you everyone for your hard work and your participation. With that said, we'll give you 15 minutes back of your day, or 17 minutes. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.